Welcome back to West Texas View.
Welcome back to the West Texas View. I'm Johnny Lou Avery, and Dr. Bobby Jane from the Texas Tech University Health Science Center is here today and was here last Sunday and will be here next Sunday talking about some different areas in the field of psychiatry. We've been talking primarily about childhood diagnosis of ADD and ADHD, but we want to talk this segment about depression, both in children and in adults. And this is a big field too, but,
it's a big field.
But start with what we need to know about depression.
Well, let me tell you the gravity of the situation about depression. 15% to 20%, that means 1 out of 5 Americans will suffer a bout of clinical depression in their lifetimes. And that's for general.
Gosh,
yes,
that's
a horrific figure. Let me finish. Let me tell you the whole scope of it. Women are particularly more likely to suffer from depression for various reasons, because of the hormonal changes, the constitution women have. So women are more likely. In general, it's 1 in 5. For women, it's up to 30%. 1/3 of the women will probably suffer from depression once or more in their lifetime.
Oh my goodness.
So the figures are tremendous. Even the World Health Organization, WHO, has marked depression by 2020 as the second most common cause of disability, only after cardiovascular problems, the heart problems. It's about 4th or 5th now, but as our industrial society is able to so-called conquer other medical problems, and as the depression is going to be getting more prevalent and severe, affecting more and more families, depression will rank only after heart disease in terms of morbidity and mortality by 2020.
Because, and you have suicide coming in.
In terms of suicide, the rates of suicide are up to 10 to 20, about 15 to 20%. That means that the rates of suicide in depression, particularly certain kind of depression, is actually higher than most cancers we know. So the death rates, person are susceptible to death by committing suicide, suffering from depression. The chances are, or the rates of it, are actually higher than most cancers we know.
And that brings us to a lot of attention has been called to children's suicide.
Right.
And a lot of times suicide, we didn't, up until now, we didn't really know how to diagnose that it was a suicide.
Well, Johnny, you'll be surprised that 15, 20 years ago, maybe we didn't believe that children could be depressed.
I know.
So it's a very evolving field. We still don't know a whole lot of it. We're just beginning to scratch the surface. There's a whole iceberg under the water.
Meanwhile, children and adults are suffering.
Absolutely.
A real problem. And,
real problem.
And a lot of people say, grow up, pull up your bootstraps and come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Pull up your big girl panties.
That's right.
That's, I think, lingo for Texas.
That's right.
Pull up your big girl panties. But depression is a significant problem. Let me tell you one thing. The suicide rates in the whole United States, the highest rates are in single white Caucasian males, 80 and above. The highest rate of suicide. Now, the highest increase, the peak we're seeing in the last few years, is actually in adolescent and young adults. So adolescent and young adults are the population segment that's showing the fastest rise in suicide rates in the United States. That shows the fact that depression and anxiety, and depression is 90% of the suicides are because of depression. Directly or indirectly associated with it. So if you treat depression, the impact on suicide will go significantly down. And one of the reasons that have come up because of this is we think because the black box warning that has come up on use of antidepressant in a young population. So basically, this warning is based on some scientific data that both in US and UK have come up with, and they found that some of the younger folks below the age of 25, when they take the medication, they have stronger suicidal ideations. There have been a couple of deaths, agreed. However, there's a lot of controversy about the data. Some folks in the scientific community think that these folks have already had suicidal ideations. Some folks think that they are probably misdiagnosed. It's not depression, it's what we call bipolar depression. which tends to get worse if they're treated only with depression. We can talk about it, it's a little bit complicated. But the fact remains is that since this warning has come up, primary care physicians are very uncomfortable
with
start treating folks with antidepressants, with young folks. So they have started referring most of these folks to psychiatrists. Now, psychiatrists are very far in between. We are kind of rare species, probably threatened species by some accounts, because we have so few. So there's a lot of waiting time to see a psychiatrist.
So you've got these doctors that won't give the medicine because of the warnings. And then these people are kind of in limbo because they're waiting to get an appointment because there's not that many psychiatrists available, which again brings us back that we're very fortunate to have our Texas Tech Health Science Center here with psychiatrists available for the whole Permian Basin, not just Middle and Odessa. And we're going to talk more about treatment and medication. But what are the differences between a bipolar symptom and a depression symptom? Because I thought they were the same.
Well, the presentation is same. Depression is depression. But the symptoms, when you go through a depressed phase, as we call it, folks go through the same phases, trouble with sleeping, poor mood, feeling of hopelessness, guilt feeling, not able to concentrate, no energy, no concentration. Those kind of things are pretty common. However, major depression, or clinical depression as we call it, is different from bipolar depression. And it's very difficult to diagnose clinically because the treatments, they present same, but the treatment is dramatically different. In bipolar depression, the mood changes happen.
The swings
happen. And the swings may be very subtle. It may not be very dramatic or sudden because there are whole varieties. It's a spectrum of problems. The ones who are having extreme ups and extreme lows are easy to diagnose. But there are certain folks who don't have extreme ups and downs, but still have a sub-variety of bipolar depression that we sometimes miss. But they still have the mood changes. So going from the up phase and being in down phase. When the down phase, they feel depressed. But the treatment is very, very different. For example, for a patient who has bipolar depression, just giving them antidepressants can be dangerous. Just like a seesaw, as I tell to my patients, if I may borrow your pen, a bipolar person who goes like a seesaw where the kids play in a park goes like up and down, like a seesaw.
And so does their moods.
So did the moods, right? Yeah. So what really needs in bipolar patients is to have something to hold them. Hold the seesaw. Don't go up and down. Just hold them.
Right.
And that's what they call mood stabilizers. They stabilize the mood. Because if you give just antidepressants to a person who has bipolar depression, it swings the mood on the upside, which may be more dangerous.
So it almost is the opposite of what you're wanting.
Yeah, and it can be more dangerous.
We're going to have to take a break, and we'll see you back here in just a minute.
Thanks for joining us for News West 9's West Texas View with Johnny Lou Avery. This has been a public affairs presentation of KWAB-TV and KWES-TV.